your foxy writer, Brandy Ackerley, and today we'll be reading the next chapter in my novel, Hunter's Gambit. As always, if you like what I'm doing here, please like the video and share, subscribe. Oh, today I am super excited! I just realized on Sunday night that When Words Collide is just 2 weeks away. Oh, I feel like I'm not prepared at all. So I spent some time working out a bit of a schedule to make certain that everything gets done on time. Oh, and I do have a lot to do. Oh, between dentist appointments and all the little things I need to do to prepare for WWC, I'm going to be busy. I'm going to have to record a few of the shows in advance to get them out to you. But I have penciled in time for both weeks for a relaxing Twitch stream. I will be playing Genshin Impact both weeks, I think. I'm going to have to save other games or more days a week for after the event. Still, I'm so excited. Again, I'm going to be taking part in 4 different programs, and I will go into each in more detail on my on Friday in my Behind the Pen episode. For today, though, on to our next chapter. In chapter 13, Kazunoha discovered that what she knew her sister couldn't accomplish on her own, she was able to accomplish with the help of Deckard. With Talbot no longer willing to sell her supplies, how will she and Richard prepare? Or is their boat dead in the water before they've even left the docks? And now, on with the story. All right, I'll just pull up the book here. Perfect. It's not even illegal, Richard said. Kazunoha narrowed her eyes and he shrugged. It's a low blow, I grant you, but he is allowed to decide who he wants to do business with. Legally, he doesn't even need a reason not to sell to you. Kazunoha felt the hard wood of the wall behind her and stared at the greens and soup on the table. It was a good lunch. She could smell the savory spices from where she stood. Unfortunately, she had no appetite for it right now. You'll have to convince one or both of them to back off, and have them explain their change of heart to your store owner. If it doesn't, then we can see about more drastic issues, he finished. Kazunoha punched the wall of Richard's room, and then grabbed her knuckles, wincing. The wood hurt a lot more than she thought it would. How am I supposed to do that? The wall wasn't damaged, which irritated her. The room was very natural looking, untreated wood for the walls, undyed linens. Even the tables had a natural feel to them. They won't listen to me. He had seen how her sister acted towards her. What about your ex, Deckard? She closed her eyes and leaned into the wall again. The wood felt smooth and cool on her forehead, and the faint scent of cedar surrounded her. As it always did, the sharp scent was calming, grounding her for what she had to do next. She pressed her knuckles against it. How did you even find out about that? Richard shrugged. He was sitting on the bed, and his shirt was a shade of purple she'd never seen before. She wondered how they made the dye. It isn't exactly a secret. The entire town remembers when you were together. That's simplifying it, I'm sure. How many of them remember it and hate me? Seems to depend on whether the individual is young and female or not. He joked as though the thoughts of everyone else weren't a concern. She wanted to laugh. Instead, she pushed away from the wall and felt a rivulet of blood run down the back of her hand. The skin on her knuckle was torn. So, what happened between the two of you? She deliberately misunderstood. Himiko and I? I thought that was obvious. Richard gave a significant cough. Normally I'd just leave it at that. However, if you won't go talk to him, I'll have to. At this rate, they won't sell me anything either, which also means I won't be able to leave if I need to. What? Why? I need supplies to travel as well. Not everything, of course, but I'd like more food, bandages, and ointments before I go. There's less issue if I take a ship, but it will be a pain, and will leave me unprepared if anything happens, even if I can pick up everything I need in the next town over. Kazunoha looked out the window, grumbling. She wanted both of them out of her life. Everything would be so very easy with them gone. Or if she just left. She put that specific thought back in its box. She had to stay, at least until this was over. If she didn't, they won. Richard touched her arm. She hadn't even heard him get up. He pulled her to the table and started wrapping up her hand with gauze. There are a lot of rumors about why you broke up. Yeah? She tried to sound surprised. When she didn't say anything else, he tapped her hand, as if reminding her to go on. She sighed. I slept with someone else. He was a little bit older, a little bit more mysterious. Richard smiled. A little less safe? She leaned away. At any rate, I got caught. Deckard left me in the dirt. She didn't add where I belonged. It wasn't necessary. And he's still trying to do what's best for you. You two have a weird relationship. We don't have a relationship, she told him. He's just being a pain in my ass. Family will always be a pain in the ass, he said. Kazunoha didn't think your ex was supposed to count as family. Instead of raising that point, she grumbled. They don't think I'm capable. You'll be out of your element, I'll give you that. But we shouldn't be doing anything out there that you wouldn't have to deal with here. What else? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Richard sighed. Kazunoha ripped her hand out of his and slammed it on the table. Her hand protested, throbbing. It started bleeding again, and she grit her teeth against the pain. Richard looked at her, his eyes wide. She blushed. He pointed to her hand. Red was already seeping up through the white of the gauze. Great. Richard got quiet. Do you think I stole the book? His fingers tapped on it, an irrepressible little dance that clicked away in the background. She shrugged. That or you slept with the wrong man's wife. Either way, why you're running away doesn't concern me. It doesn't change what we're doing here. Richard stared at her, and she guessed that he hadn't expected that answer. It wasn't either of those, he said quietly. Armed men don't come after people they don't want something from. That doesn't concern me, though. What does is you. From what I've seen, you hold a few weird beliefs, and you clearly have someone looking for you. Still, keeping things to yourself doesn't make you untrustworthy. I didn't take anything from the one that sent the bounty hunters. She wants me back for other reasons. I don't like talking about it. He paused. You don't seem to mind my secrets. You have a history you want to escape, Kazunoha said, not meeting his eyes. She only hoped that when she escaped hers, it didn't come with bounty hunters attached. And you protected me that first night, when that thug decided that murdering his target and the towny girl that was helping him was a better way to get what he wanted. That protection makes me inclined to trust you. Anyways, what have you found out about the ship? The ship's captain was a woman named Jezebel Cartine, but the patron who commissioned the trip was Morioka Norio? Do you mean Norio Morioka? When Richard looked at her oddly, she shrugged. In Cienku, the family name comes first. Morioka is a family name. I was wondering if we were dealing with a foreigner or someone who lived there. Richard shook his head. It isn't important. They hired the captain in Calvetica, and by the time they neared Hidan, they were only carrying him and his treasure. A huge storm hit the day before they arrived. That's where the tale gets a bit muddied. Muddied? Richard grimaced. According to the book, the ship hadn't sunk. He says it made landfall before everything went wrong. If they'd landed, someone in Hedan would have noticed. The hunters, if no one else. Hedan's surrounding coastline simply wasn't that big. Where would they land in a storm? That's part of what I can't understand either. Trying to land a ship in a storm like that is just asking to be driven into shore, or into those cliffs that you call a shore. At least on the water they could try to navigate the waves to avoid the worst of it. The shore around Hedan was never wide to begin with, and many times the water would come right up to the cliffs. The cliffs were nearly 50 feet tall and treacherously steep in most places. Every time the storms came, they chipped a little more away, which would make the cliffs even worse to land near, since they could have rocks hiding just under the water. It makes no sense, regardless of how high the water comes. A ship that doesn't sit too low in the water could get near the beach. The shore itself drops off after 10 feet or so. Still, it doesn't make sense, though. Not in a storm. Even smugglers wouldn't attempt that. Are there any pirate coves around here? Richard asked. Kazunoha nearly snorted. There had never been pirates around Hedan. The Holy Well had been a gift for keeping the people of Hedan safe. Even the pirates were more likely to barter than attack the town that guarded the holy shrine. Not in my lifetime, she muttered. That was the key, wasn't it? This ship had disappeared before her lifetime. Probably before her father's lifetime. There was an old woman who used to tell stories. Her tales often didn't involve pirates, but there was one. A pirate named Sun Silver hid from the Bellish Navy for 3 days straight. After the 3rd day, the Bellish Navy gave up their search. As they did, Sun's ship slipped out of a sunbeam and harried the Navy until they reached Haven Air. They hid in a sunbeam? Richard asked. Technically, they slipped out of... Kazunoha closed her eyes, trying to remember her exact wording. It had been something poetic. A sun-touched mirror. It hadn't made sense then, and it didn't now. Well, that effectively cuts out any natural caves. Still, are there any around here, other than the holy site? The beach was visible from the holy site, but Pirate Cave it was not. I'll dig up a few of the old maps around the area, and see if I can find anything. At the very least, we'll probably want to get a canoe, if Talbot won't sell us one. That is one item we may be able to get from Jack. One of his ships may have one that we could borrow. Regardless, if they didn't beach themselves, then that ship must be somewhere in the water. I'll look for likely places. The ship couldn't have been too far, though. Where did they find him? Tonoros Hill. She paused, but nodded, gesturing with her uninjured hand. I've been to it. It's a 3-day walk, but it isn't shoreside at all. Even with our few marshes up here, it's all landlocked. Himiko's mother had taken Kazunoha and her sister before she died. Kazunoha had loved exploring the caves there. Afterwards, she climbed over the city wall as often as she needed. Getting out, even if she stayed in the flower-filled plain outside the walls, had been its own reward. We can start there at least, and move our way to the shore, Richard said. She breathed a sigh of relief. I'll get on my part so we can actually get leaving. And you'll do that by... talking to Deckard. There must be some way to make him change his mind. And if I can change his mind, I may be able to push him to help me convince Talbot to ignore my sister again. I still have something I need to look into as well. Why don't you join me for dinner tonight? Of course. Here? In my room again, yes. She'd meant at the koi in general, and her face heated. She couldn't stop her glance towards his bed. The last time she'd stepped in this room, nearly a week ago, Richard had been there with her maid of all people. She looked away, trying to deny her flush. Richard coughed to get her attention. I'm sorry. but I wasn't issuing an invitation. She'd never been so embarrassed in her life. We're business partners. His tone was cold. I wouldn't want to change our agreement, muddying the waters, so to speak. Her cheeks were blazing now. She couldn't decide if she were angry at him for reading her so clearly or embarrassed that she'd just been turned down. So if we weren't business partners? She broke off and headed for the door. That was too forward, even for her. You are very attractive. His gaze was hot, but he reined it under control. Perhaps later. I hope we can still do business together. It wasn't a no. It was a not right now. Her mouth felt dry and she swallowed, her hand just above the door handle. She could tell him that she would rather share his bed than his treasure. Another wave of heat rolled through her. She took a deep breath, hearing Richard step up behind her. She bit down on her tongue and the pain cleared her mind. If she took him up on that offer, her sister and Deckard would win. She would never get out, never get away. She would have confirmed everything they believed about her. Turning, she caught Richard's hand in hers. He'd been reaching out to touch her. Slivers of cold blossomed along her back where she imagined his fingers. You're right, Richard. I was incredibly rude to even suggest it. She swallowed. Perhaps we can discuss the matter again, when we aren't partners. Richard looked surprised, and something flashed in his eyes. There and gone again so quickly that she couldn't identify it. Yes. In the meantime, we can consider our dinner tonight to be a victory celebration. It took her a moment to realize what he meant. Deckard. She groaned. They hadn't solved anything. And despite her earlier bravado in simply thinking that talking with Deckard would convince him to stop meddling in her affairs, she didn't actually think it would be that easy. Or at least a shoulder to cry on, she suggested, annoyed at the slight whine in her tone. Kazunaha, I have great faith in you. A smile tugged at the corner of his lips. I'm glad, she said, seeing Deckard's lips caught in their usual frown, rather than Richard's smile. Because what I have faith in is in Deckard's stubbornness. Okay, just let me put this book away. Perfect! I absolutely love that last line. We got to see more of Kazunaha and Deckard's relationship, and that line shows his character wonderfully. We also get to see the start of Kazunaha and Richard's relationship. Before, there may have been heat, but it was still mostly buried interest. Now it's an attraction on both their sides, as well as an agreement from both that they are working together and nothing else right now. Which always makes working together interesting. But without spoilers, I can actually say it's a very healthy move. They get to know each other better than they would have if they just jumped into bed together immediately. Anyways, that's going to be it from me this week. I have to run and get ready for tonight's stream, as well as prepping for my panels next weekend. Oh, I've forgotten the last few weeks, but please remember to leave a comment. Questions for me or for the characters, anything, even just comments about the book. I'd love to hear them all. I get a bit giddy whenever I see that someone has commented on one of my episodes.